Welcome to Lesson 3, Solving One-Step Equations. Before we get started, let's talk about 3 of our key vocabulary words. So the first one is an equation. So the term equation is defined as a mathematical sentence stating that 2 expressions are equal. And you will always have an equal sign in an equation. When we had our expression lesson, that was the big no-no. No equal signs in expressions, but always an equal sign in an equation. The next term is isolate. If you want to isolate something, you want to get it all alone. Think about the word isolation. You're going to be put in isolation. It means you're going to be kept away from everyone. So when we're trying to solve an equation, we're trying to isolate the variable. And we do that by using inverse operations. Inverse operations simply means to do the opposite operation. Okay, so let's talk about our inverse operations. So we have plus, minus, multiplication, and division. So we need to know what the opposite of each one of those operations are. What are their inverse operations? So the inverse operation of addition is subtraction. The inverse operation of subtraction is addition. The inverse or opposite operation of multiplication is division. And the opposite of division is simply multiplication. There's one more that I'd like to throw in there, and that is simply if you square a number, to undo a number being squared, you simply take the square root. So these are the basic inverse operations that you're going to run into during your equations. One-step, two-step, multi-step. So these are the inverse operations. So let's practice solving some equations using the inverse operations. Okay? How about y minus 2 equals 7? Looks fairly simple. The first thing I'd like for you to get in the habit of doing is drawing a line through your equal sign. We call that the river. That keeps your equation nice and neat. Okay? Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you're going to do to the other. So the goal is to isolate this y. We want him all by himself. Well, what's on the same side of the equal sign with y? And that would be 2. So we need 2 to go away. If they're subtracting 2, we're going to add 2. We did the opposite to it, and it's going to cancel out. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. And we just cross it out. Bring down everything that's left over on the left, which is the y. Then we get to the right-hand side, and there's a little bit of a math problem. 7 plus 2 is 9. So that's our first one-step equation. Simple enough. Put a box around your answer. It keeps your math nice and neat. Your teachers will thank you for it. All right, so let's recap. We wanted to isolate the y, okay? We wanted to keep our equation nice and neat, so we drew the river. We always perform the opposite operation. So what you do to one side, we did to the other. And then we boxed our answer. Let's try another one. All right, let's step it up a notch. What if we had y minus negative 7 equals 10? Okay, the first step I want you to do is to draw that river. So draw your river, okay? This one's a little bit different. A lot of times kids will see the minus sign and they'll say, okay, we've got to add. But before we do that, if you see two negatives or a double negative, let's clean it up a little bit. So if they're subtracting a negative, they're really adding a positive, okay? And if you'll think back, leave it, add it, change it, leave it, add it, change it. Whenever you're subtracting integers or if you're subtracting in an equation, you can always use that catchphrase, leave it, add it, change it. Now it's cleaned up. If they're adding 7, I'm going to subtract 7. 7 minus 7 is 0. We cancel it out. Y is now equal to 3. Put the box around the answer and you're good to go. All right, that was a subtraction equation turned into an addition equation. Let's do a multiplication equation. If you have a number in front of a variable, that means they're multiplying. This guy is called the coefficient, okay? That's his technical term. But that means they're multiplying. And if they're multiplying by 3, then we're going to have to do the opposite and divide by 3. So we divide both sides by 3. Those guys cancel out. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And we do not need the 1 in front of the x anymore. We're about to be in algebra class. It's just not necessary. So get in the habit of just bringing down your x, okay? And then negative 24 divided by 3 would be a negative 8. What's your integer rules? We have a negative being divided by a positive, which is going to result in a negative answer. So this is our multiplication equation. All right, let's move on to a division one-step equation. Okay, if we would have y being divided by, let's say, negative 2 equals 12. Okay, the first step is to draw that river. Okay, then you're going to ask yourself, okay, what are they doing to the variable? Oh, it's a fraction. They must be dividing. So they're dividing by negative 2, which means we're going to multiply by negative 2. Whatever we do to one side of the equal sign, we're going to do to the other. It's just how we keep our equations in balance. These guys cancel. Negative 2 is really negative 2 over 1. They're diagonally across from one another. They go away. That's the shortcut. We bring down our y. 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. Put that box or that little cloud around your answer, and you're finished. So that was an example of each type of one-step equations that you may run into. So let's just recap. Let's reflect on what we've learned during this lesson. We've learned our inverse operations. The opposite of multiplication is division. I'm going to mix them up here. The opposite of subtraction is addition. The opposite of division is multiplication. And the last one, the opposite of adding is subtracting. Oh, and there was one more. The opposite of taking the square root of a number is raising it to the second power and squaring it. So hopefully this has helped you out on solving one-step equations. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you in Lesson 4.